Fridays at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. We're going to talk about the 49ers defensive depth chart heading into week one. And there's still going to be fluctuation, I'm sure, but we can kind of lay the groundwork for not just who the starters are going to be, but how that rotation is going to happen. Because at key positions, you're going to have rotations, especially along the defensive line. But we're going to go through and we're going to try to determine who the starters are, who the depth players are, and just kind of talk this thing out when it comes to each part of the defense, all three levels of it. Now, it's going to be interesting because I think that there's still decisions to be made about who's going to start at nickel, who's going to start at safety, who's starting on the interior defensive line, or even one of the edge defenders. Is it going to be rookie Mikael Williams? Who's going to start at Sam Backer? Is it going to be Luke Gifford, or is it going to be Tatum Bethune? Or Matt Maiocco threw a wrench out there and he says it should be Nick Martin. And so I think that there's a good conversation, but we're just going to lay this thing out piece by piece. And just that way we kind of know how the rotation's going to get. We're going to talk through it and we're going to see if we can come to, a point where it just makes sense for the 49ers. And I think that this is a fun conversation heading into Seattle, because now once you get the depth charts kind of put in order, and we heard Robert Saleh say they've got this thing kind of figured out, at least for week one. Once you've got that figured out, then you can start figuring out how they're going to play and what the matchups are going to be. And some of the key matchups in this game are going to be a lot of fun. When you look over at Seattle, and they've got a pretty good running game on offense, but also you've got a couple of wide receivers that are going to be a little bit of a problem with Jackson Smith and Jigba and Cooper Kupp. So it's going to make for an interesting game. Sam Darnold's first time as a quarterback, but we want to focus on the 49ers on this one and just get everything kind of laid out. So please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. If you're listening audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network, please give it a 5-star rating if you feel like I deserve it. And of course, FanDuel is a place that you should think about betting if that's something that you like to do. The 49ers right now are favored to win the division at plus 155, and the Los Angeles Rams are at plus 200, Arizona Cardinals at plus 390, and Seattle Seahawks at plus 500. Now, the 49ers schedule, I'm sure, goes a long way in determining that they are going to be the division champs, but it's a good time to get in on it, because if the 49ers start winning, well, we all know things are going to change. Right now, the 49ers are plus 900 to win the NFC Championship and plus 1,900 to win the Super Bowl. All the betting odds you can find right on FanDuel, the title sponsor of 49ers Cutback. Now, let's get into this, because I think this is a lot of fun. And I've been keeping my depth chart up to date on who exactly is going to be where. Now, the 49ers, they have kept 11 defensive linemen, and that's where I'm going to keep this conversation started. And first, I want to determine who is going to be the starters. And we know the 49ers are still meeting with other people, other players. A guy like Kendrick Bourne is coming into San Francisco on Monday, which means there's always the possibility, if they sign him to the active 53, that this depth chart could change. Because whenever you have a position that has a lot of players at it, and defensive line definitely does, 11 defensive linemen, it means there's a chance you might need one of those roster spots. Now, so far, the 49ers have found other ways, right? Russell Gage comes back to the active roster, and they release Richie Grant. Now, there's a chance. We'll see what happens if Richie Grant ends up on the 49ers practice squad. Maybe he goes elsewhere. But there's a chance that the defensive line could be the next hit, or the offensive line could be the next hit. So remember that when we're talking about it, things can change. This depth chart, this roster is a fluid thing, and so we're talking it out. But there's a chance some of these guys could change a little bit. But I think it's easy to say Nick Bosa, right, is going to be one of your starting defensive ends. And then after that, I think it gets a little bit more complicated. If Robert Beal Jr. wouldn't have gotten hurt on August 7th, in that joint practice. I think that this month that he's been out, or at least 3 weeks, he would have put himself in position to be the starting defensive end opposite of Nick Bosa. Now he still might. Mikael Williams was looking really good in training camp. He apparently was looking pretty good in that joint practice against the Broncos. And so there's a lot to like about him. Are the 49ers willing to go with your rookie defensive end right off the bat, or would you rather go with a veteran? Would you rather go with a Sam Okuwanu or a Yetur Gross-Matos or Robert Beal Jr. or even Bryce Huff? I tend to think that Mikael Williams is going to start for the 49ers. I think they're going to go ahead. They're going to, baptize him and just allow him to get, his head underwater. They're going to throw him in there and just let him trial by fire. And I think that Mikael Williams is going to meet those expectations. I mean, this guy, he fits the bill. This guy looks the part. He was practicing and playing the part at training camp. And I think that he's perfectly capable of being the starting defensive end opposite Nick Bosa. So with that being said, it kind of sets up what the defensive end depth chart and rotation is going to look like. Your base down defensive ends, I think early on, especially with Yetur Gross-Matos' injury, could end up being Sam Okuwanu and Robert Beal. Now, there is no guarantee that the 49ers are going to have all 6 defensive ends ready to play on game day. Even though you have a 53-man roster, you have a 46-man roster that can play. And of course, with the elevations, it can go up to 48, but you are not going to have all the guys at every single position available. So there's a chance when you have an abundance of players at one position that one of them will not dress for the game. So there's a chance that Robert Beal Jr. or Sam Okuwanu or Yetur Gross-Matos are not dressing. It is not going to happen that Bosa, Mikael Williams, or Bryce Huff are not dressing. Those guys are for sure playing. Bryce Huff is your pass rush specialist. Now, he can do more than that, especially early on in the season, if you need to bridge until you get Yetur Gross-Matos healthy. Now, I don't think that they would have activated Gross-Matos unless they thought there was a chance for week 1, but we have seen the 49ers do this before where they take a player off PUP list, knowing they'll be back maybe week 2, week 3, and not wanting them to have to miss a full 4. So there's a chance Gross-Matos isn't ready. I think he will be ready in a limited fashion. And I think one of the reasons I think that the 49ers really want him to be ready is they want him on the interior to pass rush in that old Arden Key role. They want to bring that package where they can put pressure on the quarterback. One of the things they've done, and we'll talk about defensive line in a minute, is absolutely load up on defensive tackles that can stop the run. But their strength is not rushing the passer. And we've heard this before. You've got to earn the right to rush the passer. The 49ers right now, that's what they're trying to do. They want to stop the run early on the early downs, force 3rd and long, and then get in a package that consists of Nick Bosa, it consists of Bryce Huff, and Yetur Gross-Matos. Now, who the 4th guy is, I don't think it ultimately matters. It could be Jordan Elliott. It could be another defensive end like Yetur Gross-Matos, like Mikael Williams or Sam Okuwanu. It could be any one of those guys. Or it could be one of your defensive tackles. I think either way, they just want to generate pressure. And one of the easiest ways to do that is get your best pass rushers on the field. And those are Bryce Huff, Yetur Gross-Matos, Nick Bosa. Eventually, Mikael Williams will develop into a very good pass rusher. Sam Okuwanu is a guy that never stops. And Robert Beal Jr. started showing some improvement. So this is a fun room. Now, when it comes to the base, if you are having all 6 defensive ends, I feel like Nick Bosa, Mikael Williams will be backed up by Sam Okuwanu and Robert Beal Jr. to start this season. I think that they will be the Bravo group that comes in and play the run on early downs. If it's a pass on 1st and 2nd, they will rush. But I think that they set the edge the best. That would allow you to keep Bryce Huff fresh and healthy and ready to go for obvious pass downs and limit the snaps of Yetur Gross-Matos, but that way you can use him to rush the passer. Maybe he only gets 10 to 15 snaps while you're still working this guy in, but that means his conditioning will have an opportunity to catch up, and him missing all this time won't exactly, derail his ability to rush the passer if he's not playing so many reps. And we know this is the method that they're going for. And I don't know about you, but I would love to see a full-out NASCAR package of Nick Bosa, Bryce Huff, Mikael Williams, and Yetur Gross-Matos getting after the quarterback, especially on a 3rd and 12 type situation. So I think that's how it lays out early. I think at some point, if Gross-Matos gets more healthy, he will take back some of those base down reps, stopping the run. But truthfully, Robert Beal Jr. is better at stopping the run than Yetur Gross-Matos or Sambo Kawanu. He just is. When it comes to pass rush, both of those guys have proved to me better than him so far. So this is an interesting rotation. And when you couple it with what's going to happen on the interior defensive line, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Now, I think that when you look at the defensive tackle position, we know that Jordan Elliott is going to be one of the starting defensive tackles. First off, they chose him over Malik Collins. Second, he looked really good in that 3rd preseason game. He was getting in the backfield. He was being disruptive. And the 49ers wanted disruptive defensive tackle, especially from 3-tech. That's exactly what he's going to do. They don't have very many guys right now that are straight penetrators from their defensive tackle spot. They're starting to develop, but these are normal guys who played around the line of scrimmage. And a guy like CJ West could have been one of those guys, but he had a setback as well, a hyperextended knee for him. He'll be coming back, but that could have somewhat stunted his growth, or at least his ability to produce early on in this season. We'll talk about him in a second. So Elliott is going to be one of the starters. The second one, presumed starter, is Kalia Davis. Now, Davis has been working on a side field, and something has happened there. I haven't got any concrete knowledge of what that is. It doesn't seem to be anything significant. But Kalia Davis's preseason was really, really good. He put forth a consistent effort, and it was all based on technique. It was based on him having his legs underneath him. And then the most athletic ability that he has is also the hustle. The guy's got some athleticism, a former stack linebacker. He can chase you down. So I think that him and Jordan Elliott are going to start at defensive tackle. Then after that is when you start getting into the big beef of this 49ers defense. Now, Elliott and Kalia Davis are not exactly small. These guys are big. But the guys that we're going to talk about next are absolute run stoppers in every sense of the word. Now, I do believe that Alfred Collins is getting to where the 49ers feel comfortable with him being one of the rotation pieces, probably the 3rd or 4th guy in. And I think he's going to play a significant role on 1st and 2nd down, stopping the run. Now, I do not believe they're going to have very many pass rush downs that he's in. I think it would have to be 3rd and 3 or lower for Alfred Collins to still be on the field. Even then, I don't think that's happening until later on in the season. So Alfred Collins is a 2-down defensive tackle. Same with the new addition, Jordan Jefferson. Now, Robert Saleh said they haven't really got to look at him, and he is coming from a different system. So coming and playing from the Jacksonville Jaguars and what they do there is going to be extremely different from what the 49ers are going to be asking. This is the same thing Alfred Collins was adjusting to. He's so used to staying at the line of scrimmage, just eating space and eating up offensive linemen. Now, you also eat them up when they come at you for a double team, but you also have to be aggressive, disruptive, get in the backfield, create havoc. That's what the 49ers are looking for. Now, Jefferson, and watching what he had done in his preparation for the draft a couple years ago, he's violent with his hands. He's very aggressive. He's got the ability to be one of those guys that can be a disruptor and wreak havoc on opposing offenses. So I think that he comes in with Alfred Collins as part of that second group. And then after that, CJ West. And the only reason I put West there, because I do think West was having a much better training camp than what you were getting from Alfred Collins. In fact, I thought CJ West's first preseason game was better than what you were getting from Alfred Collins. But I believe in this time that CJ West has been out, Alfred Collins has improved a lot. And CJ West, we don't know where he's at. And so for that reason, I think that he's going to be the 5th part of the rotation. Once again, are the 49ers going to have 4 defensive tackles or 5 defensive tackles ready to play in this game? I think it's probably likely that they go 5, especially early, and have all 5 of these guys ready because of concerns, right? You've had Kalia Davis nicked up. Jordan Elliott just came back from a back injury. Alfred Collins has been healthy. all through training camp, but, he's had some leg issues in the past. I think it's just a smart move. Plus, where is Jordan Jefferson at as far as how quickly can Chris Kacerik get him up to speed? But I think that's how it sits. So your starters, Elliott, Davis, your first two backups in Collins and Jefferson. And I think that CJ West is in there. And at some point, he's going to move into that Bravo group when he gets more comfortable. Now at linebacker, starting linebackers, we know Mike linebacker is going to be Fred Warner. That's probably the easiest thing I've had to say since Nick Bosa is going to start at defensive end. And then next to him is going to be D. Winters. D. Winters wholeheartedly earned his spot. He earned his spot to be the will linebacker in this system. And you saw it. He played very limited in week 1 and week 2 of the preseason. And then week 3, he just got the starter treatment. He was not in there. No risk of injuries. Let's see what the other guys can do. But he was flashing. He was running around, making plays. He's definitely more in tune with what offenses are doing this year. His reads are a lot better. Even his coverage, you could tell, like, he understands concepts of what he's seeing. But what I love the most is the fact that he's pulling the trigger and going downhill, but when he sees it, he's not being out of control. And that was one of the problems with him over the first 2 seasons. He would be out of control. He'd read it. His instincts are off the charts. And then he would get there and he wouldn't finish with a tackle. And that's one of the most frustrating things when watching these players evolve and develop. And now we're seeing a guy that definitely goes and finishes. And some of the plays he's made through training camp and the preseason where he is locked onto a running back and he shouldn't get to him on the outside, but he does. The way he's been able to navigate through traffic, run these guys down from behind has really been remarkable. So I love the advancement in his game. I think he's taken a big step forward, and now he's got to go out there and prove it. But he's definitely secured that spot next to Fred Warner. And these guys are going to be playing 100% of the snaps for this 49ers defense because when you go to nickel, it's going to be D. Winters, and it should be. And D. Winters has been one of the best coverage linebackers for the 49ers over the last couple of years. Last year, he did really good, over a 70 PFF grade, which is very, very good for a linebacker. So he's got to stay healthy. He's been able to do it all through training camp. Hopefully, he can do that through the regular season. And I think the 49ers have another really good duo here. Now, the conversation about Sam linebacker, as we start to build out this depth chart, has been a little bit more interesting. Right, I think coming into the season, there were a lot of people that were saying, hey, maybe it's Nick Barton. I was kind of thinking, hey, if this dude can hit, it could be him as Sam linebacker the way that D. Winters did last year, where he got all of his work at will competing for will linebacker. But when the time came, he had beat out everybody else for that third linebacker spot, and D. Winters started at Sam linebacker. So I thought maybe there's a chance Nick Barton could do that. Now, we know that Nick Barton struggled early in preseason, but if there was a steady climb in the preseason, it was Nick Barton. It was consistently better every single week, and the last week against the Chargers, it was really good. So a lot of optimism surrounding number 45, Nick Martin. But is he ready to start as Sam linebacker? Matt Mayoko thinks he might be. I think he's the most explosive of the 49ers linebackers, not named Fred Warner. I think he's got tremendous athleticism and upside. But I think that right now, there are 2 linebackers that are playing better linebacker than Nick Martin. And I think that that is Luke Gifford, who played all Sam linebacker snaps all throughout the preseason. He did a really good job. Didn't play a lot of snaps. There's not a lot of snaps for the Sam backer. They're going to play, about 20 to 25% of the snaps for the 49ers, depending on what teams run. Teams that run 21 and 12 personnel, that's going to put the 49ers in their base 4-3. That means you're going to have Sam linebacker out there. Teams that like to run 11 personnel and kind of spread you out, that's going to put you in the nickel, and that means the Sam linebacker is going to come off the field. So this isn't a position that plays 100% of the snaps. It's a position that really, is out there sparingly, but when you're out there, you get targeted because they want to try to take advantage of you in the passing game. Usually, all you have to do is look back to Oren Burks and how he struggled a little bit for the 49ers his last season in San Francisco. So I think that it comes down to Luke Gifford and Tatum Bethune. And I think that Robert Saleh's kind of comments about Luke Gifford, about he's more than a special teams player. He's going to be out there getting reps. I think kind of keeps Luke Gifford in the mix. Now, I think personally that Tatum Bethune outplayed Luke Gifford during the preseason and should be the Sam linebacker. But I will not bat an eye if it is Luke Gifford, because Luke Gifford did not play bad. He looked good. And considering he took all those reps, it's very plausible that they decide to go with Gifford. So I don't know if it's going to be Luke Gifford or Tatum Bethune. I would lean towards Luke Gifford right now. I think Tatum Bethune was the better linebacker, but both of these guys are pretty close. And I think that, both of them are going to have significant role in the defense. So those are the top 3/4 if you count Tatum Bethune. I think 4 is Bethune coming in there. And then after that, that's when you're going to get Nick Martin. And I know that there's going to be a push for Nick Martin to play. The athleticism and things are off the charts. But I think it's important to let this guy kind of breathe and learn. And now things are going to pick up, right? I mean, preseason's one thing. The speed of the game in preseason is one thing. The speed of the game in the regular season games is a whole other story. So I think it's going to be Nick Martin that kind of steps in, at some point, but I don't think it's going to be early. I think they've got 4 guys they feel really good with, and I think eventually Nick Martin will be that guy, but expect him to light it up on special teams. And the 49ers only kept 5, and that is 5 good linebackers. Warner, Winters, Gifford, Bethune, Nick Martin. That's the order I have them in right now. Like I said, the 3-4, those guys are kind of up in the air. And then, of course, you got Curtis Robinson on the 49ers practice squad, just waiting in case they need him to come up and make a play. Now, let's talk about cornerback, because I think this is another one that's just up in the air. I mean, it really is. You know who your 2 outside corners are going to be to start. It's going to be De'Amaro Lenoir. It's going to be Renardo Green. And you're feeling pretty confident about that. Renardo Green had a really good rookie season. But after that, it gets interesting, because Upton Stout missed a lot of practice. Now, me personally, I am one of those that, hey, if you show it at practice, you can play it in the game. Now, there's a lot of people that think that you need to show it first in a game situation, right? You need to show it in preseason. There's not always those opportunities, and Upton Stout's been one of those guys that's always overachieved. They knocked him about his height. He got it done. They knocked him about his size. He hit harder than a lot of the guys bigger than him. Upton Stout looked so good during training camp, just so good. I wish he could have played some of the preseason. Not just so he could have got experience, but so people could have saw how good he was playing. But there is a real question about who he plays against in week 1. And I seen Upton Stout cover Ricky Pearsall, stride for stride, and Jawan Jennings be all over him before he was out. Go and cover Russell Gage or Isaiah Hodgins, who was a lot bigger and more physical. We've just seen him cover all these guys. And yes, is it Brandon Ayuk? No. Is it Jackson Smith and Jigba or Cooper Kupp? No. But there's one thing that I know is that if you can play corner with good technique, you can play against anyone. And so I'm not going to sit here and write off Upton Stout's chances to start. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised to see him out there. I think Upton Stout is up to the task. He has proven it every single day that he was at practice. And I get it. He had a calf injury. That didn't change him being in the meeting rooms. So as long as he can go out this week, next week, and prove that he's ready, I wouldn't be surprised to see Robert Saleh sign off on this. Now, this is a Robert Saleh call. And if Saleh doesn't feel Upton Stout is up to the task, I'll support it, because Robert Saleh, he makes good decisions and he knows when to put corners out there, but he's also not afraid to take a chance on a young player. Now, right behind him at nickel is Chase Lucas. And Chase Lucas had one of the best preseasons of any player in the NFL. I mean, he was all over the place making interceptions. And when he was playing nickel, he was dynamic during the first 2 weeks. Joint practices, the games, it didn't matter. Chase Lucas was getting it done. Now, the last game they played him at outside corner, and I think they were making sure they could make the roster cuts they needed to make, and Chase Lucas could hold up on the outside if they needed to do that. He did prove that he could hold up on the outside. I think that he's the insurance policy in case Upton Stout's not ready. So one or two things are going to happen. Number one, Upton Stout plays. Upton Stout struggles a little bit. They go with Chase Lucas. Chase Lucas finishes the deal. Or option two, they don't feel Upton Stout's ready yet. They want to give him more time. He's going to be there if you need him, but Chase Lucas gets the first run at it. I think that is a plausible, two options here. I don't know exactly how they plan to go. I kind of hope they go with the young guy and just let him go and figure it out against Jackson Smith-Njigba and Cooper Kupp, because nothing would be more, as far as confidence level, or raise his confidence level, than him going out there and having a good showing against two pros like Jackson Smith-Njigba and Cooper Kupp. But I would also understand if Robert Saleh said, let's go with the veteran Chase Lucas. He's seen more. He's been around more. He understands how to study and go that direction. I have this feeling. I just have this feeling he's going to go with Upton Stout. And with that being said, the corners on the outside, your first guy in on the outside is probably Chase Lucas, then Saran Neal and Darrell Luter Jr. And, they did keep Eli Apple on the practice squad. Dallas Flowers, they waived. He cleared waivers. I don't know where he ended up, but it's not on the 49ers practice squad as of right now. And so, Saran Neal played pretty tough. I think he played good. He's going to be mainly a special teams guy. Darrell Luter Jr. improved a lot against the Chargers. I mean, he looked far superior than he looked in any of the other two games. So let's give him that. But I don't know how confident we feel about Darrell Luter Jr. It kind of gives me that Ambry Thomas feeling. Now, Darrell Luter Jr. plays a lot more physical than Ambry Thomas. He's kind of got a little bit more body to him. He's a little bit more physical, so I don't want to put that on him. But there's definitely, a lot of work to do still with Luter Jr. And I think that they would go Lucas first in, and then Darrell Luter Jr., and then maybe Saran Neal. But, yeah, I think that one's interesting. So Lenore, Renardo Green, and Upton Stout, that's what I'm going with for the starters. I would understand if it's Chase Lucas. He definitely earned a opportunity. But then Chase Lucas, cornerback 4, Darrell Luter Jr., cornerback 5, Saran Neal, cornerback 6, I'm sorry. And there's a chance that not all those guys are available. And so with that being said, you don't normally keep 6 guys unless they're all going to help on special teams. Luter Jr. and Saran Neal do play special teams, so there's a chance that both of them could be active, all 6, but I wouldn't be shocked if one of those guys is out. And with Neal being such a good special team player, it could be Darrell Luter Jr. So remember that when we get to the game day roster. Now let's talk about safety, because it continues to get interesting. I brought up earlier that Richie Grant got waived or released by the San Francisco 49ers to make room for Russell Gage Jr. So the 49ers only have 3 safeties on the roster right now. That's Jason Pinnock, Jair Brown, and Marquise Siegel. And if you listen to Marquise Siegel's comments, this is a man who is preparing to start against the Seattle Seahawks. I don't know if he's going to start. We had a good conversation about this yesterday on the Coach Approach with John Chapman. And, he doesn't want to see Jair Brown start. And I would love to see Marquise Siegel go out there and prove it as a young player. I think that there are some concerns on the back end about Marquise Siegel when it comes to coverage. I do know he's one of the quickest learners. The fact that he didn't have OTAs, yet has still put himself in position to be considered to be a starter, I think is remarkable. That just shows how quickly he picks things up. Now, he made some mistakes. If he can rectify those, then there's a chance that he could get out there. Now, what are the concerns about Marquise Siegel compared to Jair Brown and vice versa? I think Marquise Siegel is the better tackler, and I don't even think it's close. I think Marquise Siegel is better in run fits as far about coming up and being in the right positions. I don't even think it's close. I think our concern about Marquise Siegel is, and I only think it's for the temporary, that he doesn't understand route concepts and he has dirty eyes at sometimes. And what did I mean by dirty eyes? It's a guy that likes to peek in the backfield a little bit and get distracted and lose track of the guy he's covering. Or be a little bit hesitant because he's waiting, because he doesn't want to have the mistakes. He's waiting and is hesitant. We saw that in week 2. He was hesitant to pull the trigger and didn't quite get there. And then in week 3, he tried to have the dirty eyes and be proactive, and he had some mistakes. So he's a young guy that's figuring it out. Once everything clears up for him and the game slows down even more, and he talked about it in his presser, that how much the game slowed down from the first preseason game to the last one. He's going to get it because he has better coverage skills than Jair Brown. He has more potential. He can step up and cover someone in the slot. He's proven it in college. He's got more speed. He's eventually the better player than Jair Brown. What advantages does Jair Brown have over Marquise Siegel right now? Experience. He has seen the Seattle Seahawks 4 different times. He has seen the Seattle Seahawks offense that they're going to run under Kubiak every single day in practice for almost 3 seasons, right? So he's going to have an opportunity to see something that looks familiar. He's played against Cooper Kupp. He's played against Jackson Smith and Jigba. He's played against Sam Darnold in practice. Those are some advantages that he has. Those are things that he can lean on. Is he a great tackler? No, he doesn't wrap up consistently. If he did, this would be a different conversation. But I think that there's a chance that he gets the nod early on as they continue to work on Marquise Siegel. Now, once again, I said this on his show, the show with Chapman as well. I will not bat an eye if it's Marquise Siegel. I'll be like, let's roll. We're going to have mistakes, right? Same with Upton Stout. There's going to be mistakes here and there. Let's go see what the young guy can do. Last year, the 49ers had to do that with Bernardo Green. They had to do that with Malik Mustafa, and those guys kind of ascended. So some guys stepped to the challenge. I think Marquise Siegel could. So this is an interesting one. But they don't have a fourth safety. Now, is the fourth safety on the roster? It could be. Saran Neal could be the guy that they look at to kind of play safety/corner. So they also could bring up Jalen Mahoney from the practice squad. They could re-sign Richie Grant to the practice squad and elevate him. So there's a lot of avenues for them to go to find depth at safety. But these 3 guys have been competing all offseason. I think Jason Pennick is your starter. I think Jair Brown might get the nod early. We'll see. But I think Marquise Siegel could go. And I think it would be a lot of fun if the 49ers rolled out there against the Seattle Seahawks with Upton Stout starting at nickel and Marquise Siegel starting at safety. Hey, let's see what the young guys can do. They can go out there and they make plays, tear it up. Man, I'd love it. I'll tell you right now, wait until you see Upton Stout hit. Wait until you see him tackle. It is the nickel version of Marquise Siegel, and we've been excited about Marquise Siegel all offseason. So this is the 49ers defensive depth chart and how it's played out going into a week 1. Some things are going to get figured out over the next 7 to 8 days as the 49ers prepare for their game for Seattle Seahawks. They're going to go on a little bit of a break. They're going to enjoy the weekend, and then they're coming back Monday for their bonus practice, and then it's all Seattle all the time. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to continue talking about the 49ers in preparation for Seattle. We're going to get there, and of course, there's going to be more roster changes coming. It's going to be a lot of fun, but thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one, and of course, this episode brought to you by FanDuel. Almost forgot to mention it's brought to you by FanDuel. So I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, stay safe. Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.